You're listening to episode 130 of Lifestyle Locker Radio with Dr. Dan Stickler.
The more I learn about DNA as a molecule, it is the most intelligent, fascinating molecule I've ever seen.
Hi, I'm Dr. Josh Hant, and welcome to Lifestyle Locker Radio, where we help you create an awesome life and lifestyle. From nutrition to fitness, mindfulness to peak performance, and relationships to money mindset, we bring you on an amazing journey to help you unleash your human potential. So here's a little bit about our guest today, Dr. Dan Stickler. He's the co-founder of Apeiron ZOH Corporation. He is the visionary pioneer behind the systems-based precision performance medicine, a new paradigm that redefines medicine from the old symptoms-based disease model to one of limitless peak performance in all aspects of life. A physician to high-performing executives, athletes, and entrepreneurs who want to upgrade their current state. He's an author, speaker, blogger, and a podcaster. He's a Google consultant for wearable technology, epigenetics, and artificial intelligence in healthcare, medical director of Neurohacker Collective, and a guest lecturer at Stanford University on epigenetics and clinical practice. So here we go. Here's Dr. Dan Stickler. Okay, everybody, in the locker room today, we've got Dr. Dan. I'm really excited. You heard his bio. This guy is a superstar as far as I'm concerned in the world of lifestyle, and I'm very, very grateful to have connected with him and be able to share some of his amazing accomplishments and what he's working on and what he's doing to help people perform better. So welcome.
Thanks. Glad to be here. This is awesome.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here. Pre-show, just talking about a couple of things that we're going to dive into, which I absolutely love, is nutrition or food performance and sleep or lifestyle based on genetics. And it's really a unique concept.
Yeah, it was something that I kind of fell into accidentally. Back in 2007, I had clients bringing me 23andMe data, and they were asking me questions about it, and I really had no clue as to I didn't even know what these things called SNPs were, these variants in there. And so it became a bit of an obsession for me to learn it. And I started applying it in clinical practice, started testing it out with people and seeing, if it could identify things. And over the years, I developed templates for it. And it wasn't until 2015 that people started asking me if I could teach them how to use this. I did a big presentation for clinicians about it. And then that was the birth of the Apeiron Academy. So we began teaching it at that point.
Yeah. And so when, people that have probably seen some of this stuff come across social media, and it's usually only directed towards food, but I know what you've come up with is a little bit bigger, or I should say a lot bigger, because it's not just about fitness. It's not just about nutrition. It's not just about sleep. We have like this umbrella of lifestyle, which you call, what do you call? You called, performance medicine.
Right.
Saying that correctly.
Performance medicine.
Okay. Human performance medicine. Exactly. So I know we started to take apart the data from like 23andMe and these other things. How did you come up with and start to figure this out? I'm sure like ruthless research, but sleep and all these other pieces of the puzzle. How did you figure out what works best for, certain groups of people?
Well, I think it's best to clarify the difference between an online direct-to-consumer genetic testing with lifestyle guidance versus coaching. And this was something that we've been very adamant about. Genetics, people who understand genetics know that genetics are not absolutes. Okay, there's very rarely an absolute in genetics, especially when we're dealing with lifestyle recommendations that are based on what we call SNPs. These are not mutations, despite the fact that every online marketer wants to call MTHFR and ApoE4s mutations. They're not mutations. These are polymorphisms that have developed. That means they are variants in the population. If you look at you and I, we both have 99.5% of our genetic code out of our 3 billion base pairs are completely identical. We have the same letter codes at all.
Okay.
Other than roughly about 10 million of them. And that 10 million of them is what makes every individual different.
Okay.
And those are what we call polymorphisms. These have developed over time, and different populations carry different polymorphisms depending on your ancestry. So you have propensities for stuff. Just kind of a good metaphor or example of this. Take an Inuit Eskimo. Mm-hmm. Somebody who's grown up in that population, their genetics have been adapted to thrive in that environment. Okay. And so they eat high-fat diets and they don't get heart disease. Mm-hmm. Okay, you take an Inuit Eskimo and you start feeding them like a Southeast Asian style diet that's high in starch and low in fats, and they're probably going to develop heart disease based on that, and vice versa. So, looking for that perfect human diet, there isn't one. And what it is you've got to develop an idea of who you are individually and what your mix of ancestry really is. And this is where these SNPs can guide us. Now, direct-to-consumer tests, what they do is they've basically taken the research, what we call genome-wide association studies, and they said, oh, this equals this equals this, and they come up with a report. Mm-hmm. And, I've done some of these reports, and it seems like it's like somebody else's genetics when I get the report. And the reason is because they're basing the human system and genetics on being a complicated process. Complicated means it's highly predictable.
Okay.
Our genetics are far from predictable. And it's just because of modifications that occur like in epigenetics, which is this layer over top of our genes that control the expressions of the genes. So every cell in our body carries the exact same genetic code, identical. Every cell, your eye and your skin, they're the exact same code in there. But those become those kind of cells because of changes in the expressions of the in there. And we see that with in cells that are differentiated, they have pretty fixed expressions for certain genes. But then there is the epigenetics that's in our control. These are the things where lifestyle factors can alter expressions of genes. And the only way to get to that is to actually have that data interpreted by someone trained in genetics and epigenetics to give you true actionable outcomes with it. I mean, our reports that we generate with our company, they could very easily make us millions of dollars from a direct-to-consumer model. But we choose not to do that because it's not in integrity. And it's not about trying to sell you on a diet plan or a supplementation plan that we can package and send out to you every month. That's the business model of it. Ours is about getting true action items for an individual in this. And that's what's bothered me about the industry. I think it's been watered down for people to think that these direct-to-consumer reports can provide value, and it's really not that great of value.
Yeah. So the polymorphisms, which we talk about, and the epigenetics, can make some huge changes versus just saying like A plus B equals the C diet,
right? Which
is like the generic, if you will, version. So with epigenetics, I want to talk about this for a second with you. I've heard the term thrown around. I've seen some little bits and pieces of research. So when you're doing these tests and you have your coaches or yourself working with a client, do their other lifestyle choices affect the way their genes express and function?
Oh, yeah, hugely so. I mean, think about this. I love this because the more I learn about it, and I have to say in medical school, if you told me I was going to do genetics, I would have thought you were crazy because I hate medical school. But the more I learn about DNA as a molecule, it is the most intelligent, fascinating molecule I've ever seen. I mean, it is constantly on millisecond basis assessing environment around it.
Okay.
And it's making instantaneous changes in expressions of the code in order for the organism to survive and thrive in that environment. I mean, it's truly amazing. Every breath we take can change that depending on the environment we're in. So epigenetics is this ability to really alter those expressions of that. I mean, you hear terms like nutrigenomics, and nutrigenomics is it's like the epigenetics of nutrition. It's where you can take a nutrient in order to alter expressions of genes.
Okay.
So, we can take Bacopa, and Bacopa can upregulate the expression of BDNF in the brain. It's a great adaptogen in that regard. We can take holy basil, and it will upregulate growth hormone locally in muscle. So those are nutrigenomic expressions. But everything we do, I mean, when we exercise, we're finding that meditation alters 2,200 genes.
How cool is that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's amazing that, and a lot of this stuff, it's funny because we used to think, oh, this is kind of woo-woo stuff, acupuncture and meditation, how does it work? But think about this. Why is exercise healthy for us? Exercise creates more free radicals than anything that we can do in a day. And we're always constantly saying, oh, we've got to mitigate free radicals, inflammation, we've got to block inflammation. So it's creating all these free radicals. It's creating trauma at the musculoskeletal level, tears in the muscle, hemorrhages in the joints. How is this healthy for us?
Huh. Yeah.
And actually, epigenetics explains that. So when we exercise over time, the body adapts. So we have a familiar zone, and our body kind of fluctuates in that familiar zone. When we start to venture out of that familiar zone, that's when the body says, ooh, I'm not optimized to function in this zone, so I've got to change expressions. And it shifts the familiar zone by changing gene expressions. So what happens with chronic exercise is you change over 7,000 gene expressions. I mean, that's 1/3 of the total genes we carry in our entire genome.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot. Yeah. By moving.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's, and I'm thinking this, but I just, I'm back from the gym about an hour now. And, I'm constantly changing, from ultra marathons to CrossFit to now I enjoy the gym has a turf and I'm throwing tires around and doing a lot of cool, funky movements. And I'm constantly noticing like weak points and strong points. And when I train, and I'm wondering if this is, you're testing it because I want to do this now, your testing will show if I start to change the type of exercise I'm doing, will it change?
We don't actually test the epigenetics. I mean, that's a very difficult thing to do.
Okay, fair enough.
Because every cell in the body has different epigenetic expressions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, if you look at epigenetic expressions of a skin cell versus an eye cell, you're going to see different genes turned on, turned off, turned up.
Okay.
So what's happening though is when you exercise, your body says, okay, this is unfamiliar type of movement or intensity for me. I'm going to make adjustments so that I can thrive in this environment. So it'll shift those gene expressions specific to that kind of function that you're doing.
Uh-huh.
It's funny because you see this. I used to be a weight loss doctor, and one of the things that is very common is you would take somebody who's in a familiar zone down here. They're not exercising, they're not eating right, and you put them on a diet and exercise plan. And suddenly that's going outside of their familiar zone.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first 3 months, they lose like 20 pounds. And the next 3 months, doing the exact same thing, they lose nothing.
Yeah, they get exactly.
Like, I don't understand this. I haven't done anything wrong. Well, what's happened is that familiar zone's moved from here to here. So now everything you're doing is in the familiar zone. The body's like, I'm good here. So you've got to constantly move a little bit outside of that range in order to stress the system. I mean, this is hormesis at its basis.
Yeah.
So you've got to constantly be in new environments, stress the body in different ways in order to optimize and thrive.
So how would that look like for someone, like an normal athletic person that's going to a traditional gym on a regular basis? What kind, that has a program that they've either built or purchased or whatever it is, how do they grow out of that program? Because I go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week and I see the same people doing the same things that are like, it's just the exact example you said that never changed. They don't get bigger. They don't get smaller. They don't get skinnier. They don't get fatter, nothing. They just stay.
And that's why it's so important. And that's why CrossFit has done so well. I mean, we opened one of the first CrossFits back in 2008.
Okay.
And ran it for about 3 years. But CrossFit was great because it was constantly changing things, whether it was intensity or power or duration. So there were constant changes in it. It was really good. But I also found that limited me after so much time because I would adjust to that. So now what I do is I'll run some days. I'll do sprints some days. I'll do weight training. I do indoor rock climbing. I throw things around and I find new exercises to do and things like that to keep my body in a constant state of, I'm not sure what's going to happen today.
Okay.
And I want to be ready for it.
Okay. It's interesting. And I'm seeing, I guess trends in chiropractic practice in Manhattan, and I'm starting to see these types of facilities open up where it's not just, XYZ corporate gym, where they're having weird things like ropes and tires and, rock climbing or bouldering indoors. Do you think these people are starting to figure this out because of the type of work you're doing, or is this just by
No, I think they're learning from experience.
Okay.
I think there's what's happening with the body, and they're saying, something's got to change, because it is frustrating. I mean, and even if you're just doing weights, I mean, it's simple to change your routine a little bit. You're doing regular weightlifting, and now you shift to time under tension, and then you shift to high rep weightlifting or shorter durations between sets. It's just constantly keeping the body unfamiliar with what's happening in that time frame.
Okay. And then so I have another question, just because we talk to a lot of people that are athletic minded, and for someone that's, we'll say, an endurance runner, is that something, we'll say a marathon runner, when I mean endurance, is that something that, if that's all they do, that's a pretty unhealthy thing or a healthy thing for them to do?
It depends.
Okay.
And we're in this age of data. We've got so much data, and even I deal with a lot of athletes and entrepreneurs, and everything in their life is around data. So what's the metric on the website? What's this? What's that? And most of them aren't measuring health metrics. They're not collecting health data.
Okay.
They'll get lab work, and that's about the extent of it. But when I'm looking at a client, when I'm working individually with the client, I mean, we are getting everything. We've got lab work, we've got genetics, we've got epigenetics. So we do look at some epigenetics when it comes to age prediction.
Okay.
There's some marks that we can look at and see that change in short term. So it's really nice. We look at, the breakdown of different hormones in the system. We look at their QEEG brain function. We look at their stress response, their physiologic response to stressors. We do a human movement analysis with a device called a NeuFit, which is neurofitness, and we can run currents through and analyze that. And I mean, when I go out, and all of my clients have a Phoenix 5, Garmin Phoenix 5. I have no financial connection with Garmin. Yeah. I do a lot of biometric consulting with them, but my go-to is the Garmin Phoenix 5. It's got all the data I need. I want to know, what their sleep patterns are. I want to know what their stress patterns are. I want to know what their movement patterns are. When I go out for a run, I look like a cyborg. I've got my chest strap on. I've got my wireless earbuds. I've got my watch on, and I've got my new toy, which is the Human Hex, which measures tissue oxygen utilization.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I want to look that one up.
Yeah, it's great. So I'm collecting data. I'm correlating the data with everything, and we teach clients how to take that data and actually determine what it's doing. I mean, I look at so many people that come into me, and they're on a list of supplements, and I ask them 2 questions, and they have to answer both questions. Why are you taking it? And what are you measuring to see if it's doing what you're taking it for? And it's rare that somebody can actually answer both of those questions.
Yeah. The why I can figure out, but how measuring, that's interesting. I never even thought of it that way.
Yeah. But that's data. I mean, we are a data-driven economy now, and human health is behind the times.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm like a fraction of where you are when it comes to data. I've been started getting to sleep way back when Fitbit was in, but now I'm a Garmin guy. I have an Instinct. I don't have the Phoenix 5. And I'm not giving you the finger here, but I've been wearing an Oura Ring now for months, and I absolutely love it. It's just like the data is really neat. And I'd love to see how this test comes out for me doing your genetic testing. Because, I notice so many different things with my sleep patterns, from like what I do daily, whether I'm sitting in front of a screen like I am now longer than I should, or whether I eat something too sweet or whatever too late at night. I mean, it's amazing how my next day happens. So it's very, very easy now for me to make decisions on what the hell I'm doing at night. Or even during the day.
you have the data, you can correlate it.
Yeah. So that's really neat. And I like that you take that to like the 10th level with your clients you work with. And I mean, I know you're obviously a self-tester for yourself.
Right.
With everything.
Everything.
So, yeah. So where do you see some of this technology and some of this data that we're creating for ourselves? Where do you see it going in the future?
Well, the idea is that we need to start collecting data and looking at individuals as individuals. I mean, all of the current research is based on whole population studies. And the problem is our populations are not uniform. So we're not looking at clones and seeing what happens. So research is going to become N of 1 for everybody. So what we need to do is identify how do we test N of 1 for each individual. And that's what's coming with AI. So the more data we collect, the more correlations that we start to see, then the AI can start picking up on things. I mean, I want to be able to wake up in the morning and, my Alexa's sitting on in my bathroom, and I greet Alexa, and Alexa says, "Hey, I've noticed your stress was a little high last night. Is there any correlation with anything you've been doing? Or, you're scheduled for a high intensity workout today. You might want to back that down a little bit because I am seeing high stress in the system," so that we can get that instant access to feedback that's going to guide us in that state. I mean, I already know if my stress level's up 20 points, there's no way I'm going to do well on a high intensity workout.
Okay. That's pretty neat. And I'm thinking with all of this, with this data collection, do you, and I know we have on my list for you to talk about briefly is, like enhancing your brain function, cognitive function. Yeah. Are there metrics or are there data that you're using for that with people or recommending technology for people to use?
Yeah, so we use a variety of different things with that, and it depends on what we find. So we do a QEEG brain map, and the thing with brain maps, you have to be really careful because there's a lot of like centers that are doing neurofeedback and things like that. But here's the thing to really pay attention to. Their database they're comparing you to is what's called a normative database.
Okay.
If you're a high performer, you don't want a normal brain. Exactly. And you have to make sure that they understand performance versus pathology, because you can take away a gift of an entrepreneur or an athlete. So we do the QEEG brain mapping. We also do profiles of their cognitive function. So we're looking at their memory, their reactions, and attention, those kind of things. And then we look for the modality that's going to give them the best impact. It could be alpha wave training with like a Muse headset, or breath work with an M wave. And then we identify next steps in that process. So we take people through different phases. So we have the unbalanced phase. That's where the entire human system is not quite in homeostasis. Mm-hmm. And so that's sleep, stress, nutrition, supplementation, hormones, all of that. Then we bring them into homeostasis. Then we leverage epigenetics to bring them into optimize. So we can take lifestyle factors and take them into optimize. Then we leverage technology and peptides and research chemicals to say, how can we achieve the advanced human state?
Okay.
This state that we can't achieve through lifestyle factors alone.
Okay. And is there, I know you mentioned all these different technologies. Is there something, that someone that doesn't have access directly to you at this level to get the QEEG and these other things? Is there the technology that you would recommend, say, listen, it's a great place to start to pay attention to the brain?
It's hard. The brain, first thing you have to do is make sure you're sleeping. I mean, I tell people there is no way I'm going to even venture into cognitive enhancement in somebody that's not sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night.
Okay.
It's like you've got a clunker car and you put a supercharger on it, on that engine. It's going to break the engine. It's just not going to work. So you've got to get that baseline into that state of homeostasis before you can even consider enhancement in that realm.
Okay. So we got to break it down to simplicity first.
Right.
Got it. Oh man, what else? This is interesting. So I know you're involved in lots of different things like AI. We spoke about genetics. Can you talk a little on, I've seen across from you for social media quite a bit, and I think that's maybe how I found you initially a while back, is through Neurohacker Collective. Uh-huh. How do you work with them? And can you explain what they do a little bit? Because I think this is just something that may get into the brain a little bit.
Yeah, so Neurohacker has a mission of really upgrading the human society as a whole. And this is what attracted me to them. They are, people look at them as a supplement company, but their entire mission is around upgrading the human condition. And one of their primary ways that they saw to do that was through brain enhancement.
Okay.
And they had developed a nootropic back in 2 years ago. And I had clients that were taking different nootropics, and most of them, they would try, True Brain and other formulations, and they would see about 50-50. So half of them would respond well, half would say nothing happened. And then with Qualia, I started seeing, and I wasn't using it. Didn't know anything about it, but my clients were coming in and saying, wow, I'm having an amazing experience with this. So I started recommending others to try it. And we were getting about 90% really amazing outcomes with it. And I was like, okay, something going on here. So I called the company and I said, I want to talk to the formulator. And they put me on with Daniel Schmachtenberger, who's one of the founders, and just fascinating conversation. And it was like 5 minutes on the product, and the rest of the time we talked about human systems and complexity analysis and all of this, where they had actually taken the brain and said, okay, we're going to upregulate the brain. We're going to have to increase blood flow. We're going to have to increase nutrient delivery. We're going to have to mitigate free radical production. We're going to have to be able to clear debris of metabolism. So they took a real systems-based approach to cognitive enhancement. And so, I had a fascinating conversation. About a month later, they called me up and they asked me to be their medical director. And I just couldn't pass on an opportunity like that.
Yeah. And are you using with your clients that go through this whole process with you, is that one of the brain supplements, if you will, that you're using?
It can be. It depends. Very biospecific. You ask about these little things you can dabble into, and it's hard for me because I am so used to dialing everything in from a highly precision standpoint that it kind of scares me sometimes to see people, they'll get the Halo Sport and they'll start wearing the Halo Sport to enhance their performance, which I love. And I put a lot of my clients on it, but there's some people that shouldn't be doing that at that stage. Shouldn't
like the supercharger we're talking about.
Right. And there's people who shouldn't be taking certain nootropics. It's going to mess with their system. So you've got to understand everything we do is an input to a system, and we're looking for an output, but we also have to look at the side effects of that input into it.
Okay. This is really neat. I'm just thinking of how, I wish I could have some of these tools and toys to play with my patients in my practice to see how chiropractic actually was. We know we're affecting the neurology directly, to see how it affects in these other areas and measure certain things.
Yep.
Maybe you're onto something here in my brain. You get a little worm in here, digging. This is really cool, Dr. Dan. I appreciate all of this that you're sharing. What's in the future for you? Like, what's coming up in the near future? Anything exciting?
Yeah, we're opening Apeiron centers. We've got 2 right now, one in Asheville, North Carolina, one in Austin, Texas. It's where I am with this beautiful sunshine. And we've got 4 more online for this year. So we're going to open one in Sarasota, one in DC, one in Ann Arbor, and we're flying in 3 days to London to finalize a deal with getting a London office open.
Oh, very cool. With all the same types of tools that you use now currently in your home base?
Yep. All the docs in those centers will use the same tools. And then we have Apeiron Academy, where we train health coaches. So we have physicians, chiropractors, naturopaths, dietitians, train them in this model. And what we do is we support them with the centers. So there's this equal exchange of support from the coaches out there. So we have all these nodes of the medical centers, and then we have the coaches around there that can utilize services from the centers and exchange. And we've grown. We've got 230 coaches now worldwide.
Wow, that's great. It's like that cool hub and spoke model. Everybody's connected. It's everything. That's great. The momentum is definitely going to grow. It is growing. This is really neat. So Dan, I want to actually, Dr. Dan, I want to thank you so much. This has been like a really neat conversation, which I might want to, or I do want to continue possibly on another episode when my head digests all of this stuff, so we can dive deeper, and I'll see what kind of comments we get back from our our audience, because I think they're going to love this stuff.
My favorite stuff to talk about is the enhancement stuff. So, if you've got a crowd out there that is like all over the things that can take the human state to the next level, that'll be our next conversation.
Okay, that will definitely be the next conversation, definitely to the next level. So I appreciate it. So everybody, Dr. Dan, and we're going to connect all of you. So you can go over to lifestylelocker.com/Dan Stickler, and you'll get all of his details. We're going to connect you, be able to get this kit, how do I call it? Genetic kit?
Genetic test kit, yeah.
The genetic test kit. We're going to connect you with that. And I'll give you all his other handles online so you can follow this superstar in the wellness world. So I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Hey, Locker Nation. I hope you all love Dr. Dan. What a superstar, man. Really cool stuff. And we're going to hook you up with that genetic testing kit. You have to scroll down in the show notes to actually get that link and get the discount. It is awesome. And I want to thank Dr. Dan for offering that to our audience. So just scroll down and grab that. For those of you that want to connect with him more, all his details for social media and his company will be down below. On another note, if you're loving these episodes as much as I am, I can't give myself a review, But you know what? You can share this. You can give us a 5-star review on iTunes. You could hit us up on social media. Let us know what you think. I'd love to connect with you on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter. And if any of you are looking for someone to come in and share lifestyle with your business, with your company, or even a group of people, if it is local to me or you want to pay for my travel, I'll gladly go and have that conversation with you. So have a fantastic day, evening, or night, wherever you're listening from and whenever you're listening from. Bye-bye.